Hi, everyone. This is Ashley with Quartix. Thank you so much for joining us today for our presentation on our management dashboards. So this is a feature that has a lot of components, so we're just going to dive right in. We're going to cover what the dashboards are, how to create them, and then we're going to go in depth into each component that you can choose from. So that's going to be our usage profile, number of appointments, the usage pie chart, vehicles offsite, and our real-time status. And then we're going to close things out with a Q&A hosted by my colleague, Lindsay Miller. And one thing to note before we get started here is that this feature is available in the Info Plus plan only. So if you have an Info Point plan, unfortunately it's not included, but feel free to continue to watch through, and if you have any questions, you can always ask us about it if it's something you're interested in the future. So we're going to start here. Before we get into the specifics, I just want to remind you that, this webinar is focused on customers. So we want to make sure that it's applicable to your business and show you tips on how to use it. And so we want to get your feedback. So as you go through the presentation, we've got the webinar hosting box on the right-hand side of your screen. About a third of the way down, you're going to see a section that says questions. If anything pops up as I'm going through here today, you can type it in and then click send questions to staff. And then that way, Lindsay, who's going to do the Q&A at the end, will be able to keep track of all your questions so we can cover them as we get to the end of the presentation. Okay, so let's start here with what are dashboards. So our management dashboards are customizable live status dashboards where you can choose from and customize 5 robust components. It has simple, clear graphs and charts and intuitive design and navigation. And of course, the important thing is, how does it make your life easier? The main thing here is it's going to streamline your workday. And that's because they display just the right amount of info to let you see what's going on throughout your fleet. And then you can delve in and get more detail when needed. And you can choose the components that you need. You can remove any that don't really apply to your business. So we're going to get started by showing you how to create the dashboards. So we'll show you how you can get it up and running really quick. You can name it, and then you can choose your components. So we're going to jump from here over to the Quartix website. And so we're going to go and click on where it says, of course, dashboard. Now, when I click through, it brings me to the feature and you'll see it's populated. If this is the first time you're setting up a dashboard, instead you're going to see a pop-up window. Now, when I click create new, I'm going to see the same thing here. So it says create a new dashboard. So the most important thing is to give it a name. Now, you can do this if you're going to create one just for yourself. You can use your name, or sometimes people like to set one up for different departments. So you'll see in the background here, we have one set up that says delivery. So you could look at that to see just those delivery vehicles. I'm going to create this one. I'm just going to type my own name. And you can choose start with the default or start with an empty dashboard. I'm going to go with the default so that you can see all the components at one time. And we're going to click create a dashboard. Great. And now, so we've got all these components showing up here. So this is how you create it. And then over here, you'll see if you click the drop-down menu, it shows you mine here. If you had a number of them, you'd see them all listed. And if you ever made a mistake, wanted to remove one of the dashboards you set up and start over, we've got a little trash can icon here. You could click that if you wanted to do that and start over. But I'm happy with how this one is so far, so we're just going to keep rolling. The next thing we're going to do, so we're going to go through these components, and all of them really are going to be here to sort of show you a quick at-a-glance info, and then again, you can delve in when you need to. So the first one we're going to look at is going to be our usage profile. So this is going to give you a nice overview, and you can use it either for daily or weekly usage. You can see at a glance view of trends, and then again, you can get the detail when needed. So let's hop back over to the website so you can see how it works. And so we're going to look here. It's our first one on the upper left-hand side. So right next to where it says usage profile, you'll see it says today and then all vehicles. If you wanted to look at the week, you can just click the drop down and you'd be able to select it. Or, so you can see the whole thing as a whole. I'm going to go back to today. And you'll see also all vehicles. Now, some of you may use groups. That's something you can set up either if you have multiple locations, people use this, or sometimes if they have different departments that they want to separate out. So you could say switch over and look at just your group for, we have one set up called Quartix IFTA vehicles. I'm going to hop back over to all vehicles. And you'll see along the bottom here, we've got the time of day. This is broken into 1 hour increments. On the left-hand side, you're going to see percentage of vehicles in use. So this is something that'll be helpful if you are, looking over your week and seeing, I wonder if there are spots during the day when we could be getting more jobs, when we could be booking more things, making more money. That's what we all want. So this will let you see, okay, well, looks like, right around 9, here's when it picks up, but we do have people working around 6 a.m. to 8. Maybe we could book more jobs around that time. And the way you can get additional details here, if you hold your mouse over any of these green lines, it'll show you the percentage of vehicles being used then. And then if you click on it, this is when you get to the good stuff here. This is when you get to the detail. So it shows you a list of used vehicles and unused vehicles. And then from there, if you wanted more info, you could jump to their daily log or to their route map to see, okay, I wonder where they are in their day and what's going on with these vehicles. Maybe the ones that aren't being used, you may want to check out. So we're going to close out this window here. And the next component we're going to look at is going to be the number of stops. So with the number of stops, you're going to get to set your expected stops per day. It allows you to view your fleet's progress in real time. And again, you can get those details when you need to, or you can get that overview. So hopping back over to our website, there it is. We're going to look at number of stops. And this one gives us a good chance to look at also the way you can change settings for any of them. So you'll see here it says number of stops today and all vehicles. Same thing as with the previous one. You can switch to a different time period, or you can do by groups. But what I want to look at here is we're going to go to the upper right-hand corner of this box, and you'll see there's 3 gray lines. I kind of like to call this our settings corner. I don't know why, but when you click on it, you're going to see 4 little icons here. So we've got the eye. This is something you could use if you're ever working on the system and you think, oh gosh, I forget why it's called stops. You can click through and then it gives you an overview on the feature and then the different settings. Then we've got one for configuration. We're going to jump back to that one in a moment. You've got one to drag to move. So if you wanted, you could move number of stops over to be the first one, so you can move them to different places. And if you decide, you know what, I don't really need to look at the number of stops throughout the day, you could click on the little trash can icon to remove it from your dashboard. So what we're going to do next is go to the configurations. And so with number of stops, I think it's easiest to sort of show you how it works by getting it set up how you would for your company. So for the earliest alert time, that means what is considered the beginning of the day for this feature. We're going to change this one. I noticed over here they had vehicles, well, they had one driving around 3 a.m. it looks like under usage profile. I don't know what's up with that one, but around 6 is when it looks like things really start getting going. So I'm going to change the earliest alert time to 6 a.m. Now target level is stops per day per vehicle. And before we set a number for that, let's look at what stops are here with this feature. So you have 2 different options. So you can either have this track stops where they stop the vehicle, turn the ignition off. So when they stop and are parked. Or you can do stops with ignition on. So when they're idling. The majority of our customers are going to use ignition off only. However, some people will go with stops with ignition on, depending on what kind of work you do. So it could be that, maybe they're in like waste disposal, so they have the vehicle on while they're working. Some kinds of construction and landscape vehicles will also do that. But for today, we're just going to leave it with ignition off, and we're going to change the number of stops per day. I'm going to enter 5. And the way you determine the number of stops, I usually think about, like, if I have, my guys are expected to do, 3 jobs per day, I would add in a couple extra stops. I usually round to the 5. And that's because it allows for when they're stopping, like if they go somewhere for lunch and turn the vehicle off. So I usually say round up, and then we're going to close this here. And now you'll see the settings change. So with this, we've got sort of like a fuel gauge almost image here. Up at the top, it says 125. Down below, 27. So 27 is for the fleet as a whole, with each of them doing 5. It would be 125 would be what you want them to do. 27 is what they've done so far. And here you'll notice that this section is in red. So these are, whenever you see something in red, you may see me refer to it at certain points as like an alert parameter. So basically, you want to be alerted if they fall below their goal. And you'll see that with the red. The beauty of this is you can have this dashboard pulled up and be doing your paperwork and answering calls and talking to clients, and you don't have to worry about anything on this screen unless you see it in red, and then you may say, oh, let me check on that real quick. So it's a nice way to keep kind of like a soft focus on what's going out throughout the day. Delve in if you need to. And same thing as with the previous one. If you click here, it would show you then which vehicles have had stops and how many they've gotten through so far for the day. So the next feature we're going to take a look at here is going to be our usage pie chart. So we've got actually 2 different usage features we're going to look at sort of right in a row here. So the first one's going to be the pie chart. This allows you to set target utilization levels, and you can click to track the relevant vehicles. And then we've got vehicles off-site. So with that one, you can keep track of efficiency by seeing when the vehicles are still at where they were parked overnight and how many of them are out away from their location where they were parked. So let's take a look back at the website so you can see how these work. So the first one we're going to look at here is going to be our usage pie chart. And this is great. It's so straightforward, so simple. It shows you how many vehicles are in use, how many aren't. And you can look at, okay, so for the week, what percentage of my fleet has been used? And gosh, 24%. It'd be great to get those guys working this week, It allows you to see what that overall percentage is. And same thing as we looked at how you can change the settings in that settings corner on the upper right. You could do that if you want as well here, and choose what percentages you want. And then if they fall below, you would see this section in red. So then the next one here, vehicles off-site, this one's a little bit more specific. And so before we go into what is offsite, I want to just briefly describe what the system considers on-site. So the way we consider a vehicle on-site and that location is where the vehicle was parked overnight the previous night. And we do that because, I think a lot of companies where the vehicle is parked can vary sometimes. You may have someone who parks the vehicle at the lot 5 days out of the week, but then every once in a while they may have a job site that's closer to their home. So it would make more sense for them to park at their home to cut down their commute to get to that job site. So whether they were parked on the lot where they normally are, or they're parked, in the parking lot at their house, both of those are considered on-site because it's where that vehicle was the previous evening. And the reason people will use this feature is because you often want to know, especially around this time of day, well, depending on the time zone you're in, you know, in the first hour of the day or so, you want to make sure that, you know, they're not having a coffee and chatting with their coworkers, wasting time before they get out on the road. You want to make sure that they're not parked at home too long, or that they're, you know, out there making money for you. So what you can do is, you know, first thing in the morning when you start your day, after lunch, maybe even at the end of the day, you can look at this and see, okay, what percentage of these guys are still parked in the lot? What percentage are out working? So it's a nice way just first thing to see, okay, are they up and at 'em, out there getting work done? So we've gone through this one here, and we've got one more to cover. It's actually my favorite one. So we're going to jump back to our presentation here. And the next one we're going to look at is going to be real-time status. So a lot of our customers, you know, I'm on the phones. I probably talk to some of you actually all the time. And one of the biggest things people are concerned about is, what are my vehicles doing right now? You know, it's one of those things that you worry about. It's like a cloud over your head if you don't know. And also, are they idling a lot? Because idling is wasted time and wasted money on fuel. So with real-time status, you're going to see like a live update on what is happening with your vehicle. So you get at-a-glance view of real-time fleet efficiency. You can monitor idling vehicle trends, and you can set those alert conditions. That's what I was talking about earlier, where if it goes below a certain level or above, depending on the case, it would show up in red, so it would spark your attention. So let's jump over to the website so you can see how this works in action. All right, and so we're going to look over here. Ooh, this is good. We've got a couple in the red, so it's a good example here. So you'll see we've got vehicles that are moving, and this one you'll see it's falling below its goal, so it's in red. So here's the component on the pie chart here. And then I kind of love this. We also have below here a little line to show you how far off they are from their goal. So we've got this cute little flag showing you their 30% is the lowest that we want for them to be moving, and you see the little red marker shows you how far below they are. Then you've got stationary with ignition on, in other words, idling. So it's good that they're not meeting that alert condition for the idling. Then you've got parked off-site and parked on-site. And again, we know what on-site and off-site are based on our previous feature we looked at, but on-site would be where it was parked overnight. Off-site would be parked where it wasn't last night. So here you get to see, in fact, we just saw an update here, and now we've got 3 categories in the red here. So this lets you see, again, that percentage, and I'm just going to click here on the stationary with ignition on. Now we're going to see here that we've got those 4 vehicles, and allows you to jump to their log or to their live tracking. So let's just go ahead and click here. And this is going to show you now where those vehicles are. So this feature is a great way for you to see that overview, and then you can jump straight through to see where they are on the website. Great, so we're going to jump back to our presentation here. I know we went through a whole lot. So before we go to the Q&A, I wanted to show you a cool new kind of trick of the trade here we have on our website, which is we now have live chat. So you may have actually noticed it on that last page we're on, but when you log into the system, and even when you're just on the website looking around, if you haven't even logged in yet, you'll notice that on the lower right-hand corner, you're going to find this little sort of smiling chat face icon. So we have that there so that if you're have questions during business hours, we're in the office 9 to 5 Central Time, Monday through Friday. You can just go and type away. So you'll see here we've got faces of some of my colleagues, and you would click where it says New Conversation, and then you'd be able to type in, hey, can you remind me how to do this feature? I have a question about my plan. I think I forgot my password, whatever you need. And then the other thing that I love so much, we've got a searchable FAQ section. So any time of day, 24/7, 7 days a week, you have a question about, for example, what we just covered. Maybe you're working on your dashboard and you think, oh gosh, what was that thing Ashley said? You can just go in, click the little smiling chat face icon, and then where it says find an answer quickly, you'd be able to type something in, and then it's going to show you in the search results a number of options. So for dashboard, it's got a general overview, and then also it gets more specific into the different components. So if you need anything, you can always go there. So thank you so much for going over with this with me here today. I'm going to pass over to my colleague Lindsay. She's going to answer, sort of ask me some of the questions you guys had. If you need a recap, let us know. Any more info, suggestions for future webinars. This is a topic that I think a lot of people are looking forward to using. So if you have any questions about setup, we'll try to get to that now, but if we run out of time, we'll follow up with you after the presentation. So I'm going to introduce here my colleague Lindsay. Are you there, Lindsay?
Hey, Ashley, I'm here.
Okay, fantastic. So great. What do you have for me today?
So I have a couple that I'd like to get to first, and again, any we don't get to, I will go ahead and copy down, and we'll follow up with the client after the webinar. But getting started, our first question comes from Andrew, and he wanted to know, you mentioned groups, but how do you set those up?
Oh, great question. Okay, so groups are something that's going to be really great if you have different departments. A lot of my landscaping companies use it for, like, hardscape, irrigation, etc. And the way you set them up, I'm going to jump over to the website real quick. So the first thing is to set it up, you actually are going to email our support team. So you send an email to them. It's going to be systems with an S, systems support at quartix.com, and tell them what groups you want. And if you know which vehicles you want in each group, you can include that. Or if you aren't sure which vehicles are going to go in which group, you can just email them to set it up. And then once it's set up, you'd be able to go into your configuration settings. And then 3 down, you'll see edit group details. We're going to select the if to vehicles group and click OK. And then you'd be able to, once it's set up here, say, oh, you know what, I think I want this vehicle in there. So you'd select the one you want and then click an arrow to add it in. Great.
Great. Thank you. And then I think we have time for one more question this afternoon. And this one comes from Selena. She wanted to know, how many dashboards can I set up? Is there a maximum number?
Oh, good question. No, there isn't a maximum number. I find that when you're setting them up, generally speaking, if you have a large company, I would say that instead of having each individual have one, it may be easier to create one and then share it with other people who it's relevant to, or set them up if you use groups, set up like one for, like, delivery vans or something like that. And actually, let me just show you one quick thing that you can do here while we're talking about sharing. And the only reason I say that is you can have as many as you want, but if you have a whole bunch, it's just going to be a lot more to go through in the drop-down menu, maybe a little confusing. But so I set up this dashboard here, and if I wanted, I could click to share, and then you'd be able to select who in your team you want to share it with, and then that way they'd get a notice that they're allowed to view it. And you can also, if you wanted, you could create one and you could have it for it could be dispatch, or it could be based on the group. Great. Does that answer it? Did they have any further questions on that?
That does answer it. And
Great.
unfortunately, we are out of time for this webinar. I know there's a couple of questions we didn't get to,
Okay.
but we will send out an email right after the webinar shuts down, answering those questions for those folks.
Okay, fantastic. And thank you again, everyone, for joining us. Just to recap here, if you have any questions at all, we're always here to help. So you can email sales@quartix.com for questions about your account or features, or if you want to reach your rep and you can't remember their name. You can go to support@quartix.com for questions about the features. And we're in 9 to 5 Central, Monday through Friday. You can reach us we got our numbers here, or again, you can use our happy little chat icon to chat with us throughout the day. And so just to finish things up here, I wanted to do another webinar. We picked this topic based on votes from the previous one. So we've set up a poll that you'll see in your account here. It'll pop up. Please vote for what you want to see in your next presentation. So the poll should be open now. And I'm going to put a slide up in a moment here as well. But just a reminder, any questions at all, let us know. And if you happen to know any, friends or colleagues who have businesses and might be interested in Quartix, I always want to remind people we've got an awesome referral program. So if you send someone our way and they sign up, on the first order, you'll get a $25 credit per unit they order off your next invoice. So thank you again so much. I look forward to following up with you and speaking with you in the future. Have a great day.